There you go.
Okay, thanks. My name is Dynee Medlock. I'm a wife and a mother of two. I have lived in Ward 4 for over 14 years. It is important to me to know our community has a voice at City Council. I'm running because I care what happens in our community. I'm running because I've lived here and I feel like I could represent what matters most in our ward. We need someone who will represent all of us, not just special interests. We need someone who can step up and get things done. We need someone who will be able to face problems and find solutions that strengthen our community instead of filling the pockets of developers. Our community is not for sale. Before Battle Creek Elementary School and Park were built, I worked alongside other board members of the South Gateway Neighborhood Association to stop a large development that would have had dire flooding consequences for our area. We are seeing the same developers coming back again and trying to replace Creekside Golf Course with a bunch of luxury homes, ignoring the catastrophic consequences that development would cause in our area. One of those developers, Mountain West, is financially backing my opponent. My priorities come from those who live and work here in Ward 4. I have heard during my meet and greets and listening sessions with residents and local businesses that the following are our top two priorities. Priority number one, homelessness and lack of affordable housing. When elected, I would support increased coordination of social services and safe managed shelters. I would encourage more affordable housing and a variety of housing choices. And I would continue to support the Salem Outreach and Livability Services team, which, if you're not sure with the name, they call it SOS now. And they're the folks that come out when people call and say they see people living in unsafe conditions who need help. It's a great program, and I've already heard people say that they've seen things improving around their area. Number two, when it comes to priorities, is improving safety and livability in our community. To do this, I would attend to neighborhood concerns about unsafe traffic conditions, such as the dangerous corner at Liberty and Mildred, and the lack of crosswalk at Baxter and Reese near Pringle Elementary School. I hear your concerns, and I would support efforts to improve sidewalks, crosswalks, and bikeways. I would work to get a new fire station in Southeast Salem and a new library in Ward 4, because I don't know about you guys, but libraries are really, really important. And we have a lot of people that live here and are moving into Ward 4. And of course, because all of us have this belief, I would work very hard to continue to increase the tree canopy so it can help us weather the changing climate that we are dealing with now. So I would like to say that the choice is yours. Do you want developers to buy a seat at Salem City Council, or do you want your voice to be heard? As a community, we need to work together to protect our voice because we are stronger together. And I yield the rest of my time to questions. I kept it short and sweet because I was very interested in hearing what kind of questions people had. So I hope that's okay.
Sorry, I was tending to our next speaker. Sorry.
That's okay.
So thanks for that. Oh, we've already got a question. Marianne, you're just too punctual. There you go.
Hi, Dynee. I'm not in your ward, but of course, I'm hearing and listening to so many people who are so concerned about the houseless situation.
Yeah.
And in fact, I pointed out to folks earlier because I asked the question to someone else. There was a piece on Morning Joe where he had Frank Luntz on, and I'm thinking of that. But it was like, so what is this about? Well, it turns out Frank Luntz was presenting a focus group results that he did that actually showed that if you had the same, with the same number of folks who voted for Trump and the same number of folks who voted for Biden, their biggest issue was housing, secure housing, and being able to attain secure housing. So yeah, it's a big issue. So one of the other questions I asked, and I know that this is because you're in South Salem, and it seems like South Salem is the place where we only build big fancy houses, and that's where we have all the roads that slow people down because they end in dead ends and they have cul-de-sacs. And I live in the old part of town that's on the grid, and so I have people going 50 miles an hour down my street.
Wow.
But and 18-wheelers coming down my street. But of course, that's because it's a nice big wide street and it's straight. But my question is, what could you do to start increasing the height level of buildings, especially downtown where we have transit, and we can probably bring in some grocery stores and actually have a walkable community that can have basically have apartments and condos that can be more affordable for people, rather than having a great big house on a bunch of land that the dog just lives in all day.
Well, let's see. So I'll take your question in parts, because part of it has to do with downtown and part of it I think has to do with Ward 4. So in regards to the downtown portion, I really like some of the work that they've done, for example, in the old Nordstrom, how they're converting that and renovating it so that we could have more affordable housing downtown. I think the biggest limiting factor we have right now is the amount of time it takes once we start getting things in the process, and we need time and we need manpower. And oh yeah, by the way, we need a little thing called money. So I definitely, from my perspective, I agree that it is, I shouldn't say that. It is frustrating to me to hear things from my opponent where she says, we just need to build more single family homes. And that frustrates me to no end as a person who has lived here a long time and seen a lot of single family homes come in, and that does not solve the problem to the 60,000, maybe even more people will have here by 2035. So I think I would definitely be in support of ways for us to be able to have more people live, live in Salem, but at a place where they could live, because it's not livable now, not with many people. Sorry, I go on and on. This is really a big topic for me. When I've talked to people around town and I looked at the statistics, it's really surprising to see that many of the service industry jobs that we have in town, a lot of people, they don't live here. They live outside of Salem because they can't afford to live here. It's just too expensive. And I know I did have someone talk to me about possibly phrasing it so it was a little more appealing to all the different political parties, and say maybe we call it workforce housing. I don't know if spinning it a little differently makes things a little better to get more people on board. But I feel your frustration, and I see it as well every day.
And I also know that the south end of Salem, that's all built on the rocks, is the safest earthquake area. And so as an area of town that can have more building taller than like where I am, which is basically liquefaction zone.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that the folks up on the hill in the south also need to be able to be convinced that building taller buildings on the rock would be safer. And if they're going to be building more along Kubler and expanding more business up there, that would also be, all that area can be used to build housing that goes tall.
That would be ideal. A frustrating bit, I'll let you know, because we were talking about this at the last South Gateway Neighborhood Association. is the great deal of the development that is going to be happening along Kubler is not necessarily housing per se that people are talking about. And that's really, the residents have been really frustrated about that. I mean, the last big battle we had was, please, please, please don't put 4 drive-throughs in the area right next to Costco. We need more housing. If you want to put something that's not housing, please put a restaurant or like a center where people can hang out and do things. So yes, I think that you have a lot of really good ideas there, and I would love to see more housing. We have a few more apartment complexes that are coming up around here. I also like the idea of maybe pairing, and this is, I'm just throwing this out there, but pairing with Chariots on some more, maybe different projects where we could actually have maybe affordable housing above some of their hubs, so that not only would people have an affordable place to live, but they'd have transportation that would be available right there. So that's my thought.
All right, let me,
Thank you.
Jack, I've got a couple questions from the chat and then I'll get to you, Sean. Jackie, were you able to ask your question, or if you can't unmute, I'll go ahead and take it. I'll go ahead and go with it. This is from Jackie, and she asks, how will you ensure that your voice is heard and advocate for more representation on council matters? Okay,
That's a good question. So I have a lot of experience being what people like to say is the squeaky wheel. On the face of things, I'm very friendly and I'm very kind. But let me tell you, when it gets down to business, I definitely make sure that if I have a point that needs to be made, it gets made. Working in the IT industry for as long as I have, and having at times to really make sure that my voice is heard, when it hasn't always been as friendly as it is to women now. I have a lot of experience with stepping out there and making sure my voice is heard. And if it's not heard one way, I find another way around to get it there. So I'm a strong believer in advocating for others and making sure what we want comes across.
Okay, cool. Sean.
Oh, wow. I really look forward to you being the squeaky wheel on the Salem City Council. That's fantastic. I was actually wondering about closing the foot of State Street, where State Street hits Highway 22 / Commercial Street at the very end, 100 State Street, closing that to traffic in both directions. So you could no longer enter Highway 22 from State Street or exit it.
Interesting thought. Has it been proposed before, or is that just something you were looking at recently on the map?
I've been thinking about it for a while. I've proposed it before. How's that for an answer?
That's very good. So I think that when it comes to things like that, I would definitely continue to get more input. I trust you very much as a person, but I know that I would also have to talk to other people that live along there and see how they feel about doing that. But I can tell you, thinking back, this is going back pretty far from when I first moved here. We had right off Kubler, there was a street that went right off Kubler that was between Sunnyside and Lone Oak, and it used to go straight off of Kubler, but a lot of traffic went through there, and the neighbors were very frustrated. But over time and speaking their mind, they were able to get that street shut down. And I kid you not, to this day, you can walk up there, and there's like a little area where the sidewalk is, where that originally was a street that went out to Kubler. So if that's something that would make a big difference, and you have enough people backing you, especially the folks that would be affected the most, that live around there and travel there, I think it is worth proposing and fighting for.
Here's a question from Bill Dalton. I don't think this was asked yet. Regarding PacWest and Costco, 200+ residents voiced their concerns regarding traffic and environment impacts, including the now killed White Oaks. Terrible turn of a phrase there. Our concerns are undermined by city staff who did not represent our concerns to LUBA or the courts. How would you hold city staff accountable to our elected reps?
Okay, so I've got to step us back to 2007 at the current city council. And I'm sure, Bill, you've probably already heard this before, but just to catch everybody else up. So back at that time, the current city council that was a lot more developer friendly, I might add. Let me just put it this way, they had a nice conversation with the folks that own that land. And I'm gonna just summarize it in a casual way, but they're like, hey, that land looks great. You know, can we like put commercial stuff on there? And they're like, yeah, it's great. No restrictions added, nothing that was like really anything about like making sure that you don't cut down all the trees, things like that. It was so open-ended, it makes me cry just thinking about it. I mean, not literally, but it makes me cry inside. Then you then you fast forward to when it came up that Costco wanted to build. They had done a whole bunch of things with the streets, and all of a sudden we hear, holy smokes, wait a minute, this was promised to Costco? Why weren't we involved? Why did city council just go, here is a big stamp, go ahead, build whatever you want? And I remember thinking, wow, we really need different people on city council, because the decisions that were made all the way back in 2007 have played a huge impact on where we are now. Because yes, I know city council, you know, it made everybody frustrated. I know, because they had to send it to Luba. They had to send it there, then it got tossed back. They had to send it forward to another place, and it got tossed back. And then they were pretty much told the city was going to get sued. I mean, that's the end of it. Like, your hands are tied. If you do this, you're going to get sued by the big giant corporation. And it's going to be more of a loss. What I would like to see, having more people on the city council who actually represent the people and not developers, that we would be able to block something like that happening before it gets too far down the line and our hands are tied. And that's another reason that I want to get on here, because it starts a lot earlier than many people think. It starts right at zoning. It starts as annexation. It starts that far back. So I hope that answer was helpful, maybe.
I think it is. Well, unfortunately for Bill, he's got an old computer, so he can't talk to you anyway. So
Oh, okay.
there you
Sorry,
go.
Bill.
I have a question that has to do with the environment.
Okay.
The city has this climate action plan, and last I heard, I think it got endorsed by the city council. Do you know what the next steps are with that? And would you support, how actively would you want to support said climate action plan?
Oh my gosh. Well, if any indication of the weather the last 3 years says anything, yes, I do support it wholeheartedly. And part of it is, if we don't do anything, if we don't support it, we're, sorry in my language, we're screwed. So I should be more formal. I digress. But so for me, I've spoke to Mickey Varney recently, and Virginia. They went to a conference recently that was talking about some of the funding that was coming from the Inflation Reduction Bill that Biden's administration just passed, and how there is so much there, so much money, so much that we can request, that our climate action plan, we are in a perfect place to be able to move forward on infrastructure. And if I had a magic wand to do exactly what I wanted to do right now, I would build up more electrical capacity throughout the city. So electric chargers for electric cars. I personally would love to see, you know, many of our vehicles go electric. I know that there is a great resistance from certain groups. Yes, I'm holding my tongue, but yeah, certain groups that are not so much of a fan of that. But the fact is, the facts tell us that if we do nothing and we don't move fast enough, you know, we will be in a very bad place. So what I can tell you is that I would support us getting more of those grants, getting more of the money, and moving forward on our plans to be less dependent on non-renewable sources of energy, and really making Salem a more resilient place to live.
Thank you.
Hi, Marianne.
Hey, Marianne. Marianne, if you can give her a short one, because we're within 10 minutes and we've still got to get her closing statement.
Okay.
So there you go.
Well, Dynee, I'm one of those folks that worked very hard on stopping the third bridge. And one of the things that I actually proposed to Paul Evans years ago, and I think it was also Brian Clem, is that we actually remove Route 22 from downtown Salem and actually reroute the southbound parts of it through Kubler and down to the Independence Bridge and take it over the river there. And then the folks who are looking to go northbound to go along in Kaiser, the big road there, to out to Wheatland, which would then take it to a bridge that can go across to Lincoln and go up and over the hills there to join with 99. So that would take a lot of traffic out of downtown. But it would also increase traffic on Kubler. But then Kubler has been built up so much that I think it could probably handle it, since it's only taking part of the route. But whether anything like that can come to fruition, so I'm becoming more concerned that we have all this infrastructure money and they'll dig up all the old plans for the third bridge, which is a disaster because it's not earthquake proof, amongst other things. And it costs too much for what it delivers. But anyway, so what kind of encouragement can you give me on something like that?
Well, one thing I can tell you is if anyone ever had any desire to do that, they would have to start all over from scratch and get an environmental impact study. So heaven forbid they want to go do that. It would be a very long process, and they can't just dig up the old plan and say they're going to do that. So if that gives you any comfort, I hope it does.
Cool. So with that, Dynee, can you give us your, oh, and that's when I introduced you, maybe I did it too fast. I wanted to let everybody know that it's spelled D-Y-N-E-E, but it rhymes with Renee. So if you just think of Renee, Dynee, it makes it real simple and it works every time. So I just wanted to share that. If you could give us your closing statement, that would be great.
Okay. All right. As I said before, my name is Dynee Medlock. And my top priorities we have is homelessness and affordable housing and making things more safe and livable in Ward 4. But I think I want to end this a little bit more fun. So I'm going to tell all of you my middle name, and then I'm going to explain what it means. My middle name is Keahi Leleokamai. It was my great-grandmother's legal first name in Hawaii. So when you think of the name Keahi Leleokamai, you think Ahi is fire, Lele is movement, and Maili is the flower. So when you go Ke Ahi, are you the fire boomerang? Lele o Kamaili. So what would happen is the royalty would go out on their boats at night, and to come back, they couldn't see the shore. So they would have to light the ends of boomerangs on fire, throw them out to the shore, and the light would light up all the Maili flowers on the shore. So now you all know how to say my middle name. Ke Ahi Lele o Kamaili. Thank you all.
I sure hope there's not a test on that one. No, that makes Dynee sound real simple though, doesn't it? No, thanks Dynee very much for being with us. We appreciate it, and we'll see you around with your campaign. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Take care.